All right, next video clip here, we're going to talk about the features that you need to know from the spinal cord. And I'm going to start off with by pointing out the three different layers of the meninges and where they're located around the spinal cord. So we are looking at a transverse section through a portion of the spinal cord, and we've also got the surrounding vertebra, as you can see here. And hopefully you recognize some of these features from Unit 3. Here's the body of the vertebra, and of course we got our transverse process over here. Maybe you remember that this must be a cervical vertebra because we've got those transverse foramina there, and we have a spinous process back there in the back. So right there in the center, that is the spinal cord that is cut open for us in cross section so that we can see the inside. And the spinal cord is surrounded by meninges as well. So let's kind of draw in those layers. So the dura mater is the outermost layer. And then right in direct contact with the spinal cord itself, you would have your pia mater. And this is a diagram that's directly out of your textbook, so you can take a closer look at it there as well if you would like. And then in between the two, you have the arachnoid mater, just like you have around the brain. So I'm kind of tracing that around with the pen. Arachnoid mater. And then it's got, just like around the brain, you've got those webby little connections there between the arachnoid mater and the deeper pia mater that is directly in contact with the spinal cord. And then in dark blue here, that those spaces around all that webbing between the arachnoid mater and the pia mater, that is filled with cerebrospinal fluid. So you have that bathing your spinal cord as well. This is not listed as a feature that you need to know for the anatomy, but I do want to point out to you, do you see how external to the dura mater and in between the dura mater and the vertebra, you've got all this fatty tissue in here? And that fatty tissue in there, that is your epidural space that's filled with fatty tissue. You've also got blood vessels flowing through there as well. And so when a woman or somebody else receives an epidural injection of an anesthetic, that's where they're injecting it, into that fat-filled space that is superficial to the dura mater. And then that anesthetic, whatever it is, diffuses into the blood vessels there. Those blood vessels bring blood to the nerves that are attached to this area around the spinal cord, and it helps deaden those particular nerves. But I just wanted to point that out to you, even though that's not listed as something you've got to be able to identify on the Unit 5 anatomy. Okay, and then continuing on with your spinal cord anatomy features that we're taking a look at here. Let me flip over to another picture of the spinal cord. So here we're seeing a chunk of the spinal cord, and we're not taking a look at the vertebra anymore. Now you can see the three layers of the meninges. In fact, I like this view a little bit better. There's the dura mater that's superficial. In the middle you've got the arachnoid mater, and then in gray, directly in contact with the spinal cord itself, that's going to be your pia mater. And the dura mater is the toughest. It's not quite as thick as the dura mater around the brain. If you ever get to do an actual brain dissection at some point, you'd be very impressed with how tough that dura mater is around the surface of the brain. All right, then looking at our spinal cord in cross-section, the spinal cord does have, let's see, white matter in it, and the white matter is just like in the white matter of the brain. It has myelinated axons in it. And then you've got gray matter areas, in here as well. And the gray matter areas can be divided up into posterior and anterior horns, or dorsal and ventral horns. So those two kind of pointy areas of the gray matter there, those are the dorsal or the posterior horns. And then these kind of pointy areas here and here, those are your ventral or your anterior horns of the spinal cord. And your dorsal and your ventral horns are gray matter areas, so they have cell bodies of neurons. And the ventral horns, that's where you have the cell bodies of the motor neurons that control your skeletal muscles. So the axons of those motor neurons, cell bodies are in here, and the axons are actually going to travel out through these little nerve rootlets that you see there on the diagram, and then they're going to move into the nerves, and they're going to be carried out to the particular skeletal muscle fibers that they are supposed to innervate or serve. Oh, also the central canal of the spinal cord. This little pinprick right in the center of the spinal cord, that's representing the central canal. You actually have a tunnel or a canal that runs all the way up and down the center of the spinal cord, and that is filled with cerebrospinal fluid. All right, so that's actually all the major features of the spinal cord you need to know. On the next video clip, we'll talk about the spinal nerves that you need to be able to identify for the Unit 5 anatomy exam, and it's pretty straightforward as well.